Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. My name is Gabriel Moreno, and I'm the manager of design programs at Arts and Public Life. If you're new to us, welcome, and thanks for spending your night with us. At Arts and Public Life, we build platforms in arts and culture for practitioners on the South Side of Chicago. And our platforms are for them to create and connect and amplify their work. We do this through 4 distinct platforms: our artist residencies, arts education, exhibitions, and creative entrepreneurship. Across all these platforms, we focus on fostering community connection, proximity, and inclusivity in physical and digital space. This event is the final session in a 3-part series of the Black Wall Street Journey edition of Chop It Up, where practitioners can have a casual and candid conversation about their craft and how they're seeing the world today. If you want to catch up on the first 2 sessions, they're archived on the Toward Common Cause website, where you can find out more about Black Wall Street Journey as a project and its context. The Black Wall Street Journey edition of Chop It Up is presented by Arts and Public Life in partnership with the Smart Museum of Art at the University of Chicago and Public Media Institute. We are in conjunction with the multi-partner, multi-venue exhibition Toward Common Cause, Art, Social Change, and the MacArthur Fellows Program at 40, curated by Abigail Winograd. Before we dive in, I'd like to note that the program will run from 5:30 to 7, leaving the last couple of minutes, 15 to 30, for Q&A. We'll be accepting questions throughout the entire program, so please submit those at any time, and we will make sure to catch those and send them to the moderator. And finally, Black Wall Street Journey is led by artist Rick Lowe. Lowe lives in Houston, Texas, and his work is characterized by participation, problem solving, and crafting social structures to amplify collective creativity. He's known widely for Project Row Houses, which began in 1993 in Houston's Third Ward neighborhood. We will kick off today's event, and it is my pleasure to introduce to you Rick Lowe.
Okay. Thank you, Gabe. So yes, my name is Rick Lowe. I'm an artist. I live in Houston, Texas, and I'm a part of the exhibition Toward Common Cause at the Smart Museum. And I'll give a little bit of context here about the Black Wall Street Journey before we turn it over to Natalie Moore, who's going to engage our guests today. But just to give you a little background, I was invited by the 1921 Tulsa Massacre centennial to develop a cultural component for the centennial for the Tulsa Massacre, which just happened last May. And but I wasn't that familiar with the Tulsa Massacre when they invited me. And I mean, I knew that there was a horrific time in which lots of people were killed and displaced and that kind of stuff. But what I didn't know, and I was very surprised to find out about the way that Black Wall Street actually functioned in Tulsa. And what most surprised me, though, was the kind of resilience of that community of people. Because when I went thinking about it from the context of the brutality and the killings and all that stuff, what I didn't think about was the entrepreneurial spirit and the resilience of those people. Because after the massacre, they came back to Tulsa and rebuilt. Many of them did. I mean, obviously, many did not, but many of them came back and they rebuilt. And that was, to me, that was symbolic of something that was amazing for me. You know, that these people who had built a certain level of wealth and economic stability were wiped out, and they went back to that place in the face of all the challenges and rebuilt. And that left me with a question, leaving Tulsa on my first visit and getting to know this information, was that if folks back then in 1921 could actually go through something so horrific, but then go back and rebuild their community, why can't we do that now, 100 years later? You know, I mean, why are we not rebuilding our communities? So I left with a question of what would Black Wall Street look like in the 21st century? Where is Black Wall Street in the 21st century? And that's what the Black Wall Street Journey is all about. It's about going along this journey, trying to better understand, you know, what are the things that make Black Wall Street. I mean, Black Wall Street is a very broad concept and idea, and it has mythical qualities about it. But I'm just trying to, you know, listen to people and understand better. You know, how do we think about the economic conditions of African American communities in the 21st century. And one of the things that I've noticed in my research for this project was that it's very hard to find uplifting and encouraging moments about possibilities of the Black economy, because whenever any kind of research you do, it is comparative to the overall, and Blacks were always listed as, we're talked about in terms of our deficiencies, the wealth gap and all of these kinds of things. And I was curious about, but there are interesting things happening in our communities, and people are doing interesting things. Why can't we talk about that? So that was kind of the impetus behind Black Wall Street Journey, and certainly with this conversation with Natalie, to let's engage with people who are on the ground doing stuff that can shed some light, and hopefully, something that we can build on, feed on about the possibilities of what we're doing here and how we do it. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Natalie, who's gonna introduce us to our guest speakers this evening, and we'll go from there. But before we do that, though, I want to say this about Natalie. I'm jumping in too fast, but Natalie, when I first came to Chicago, not knowing the context and people there and stuff, so I was very fortunate to be able to connect with a number of really great people that kind of guided me and helped me kind of move through the process. Artists like Amanda Williams, Fahim Majid, business folks such as Guion Foreman, Cheryl McKissick, Gwendolyn Butler, and lots of folks that were helpful in thinking about things. And Natalie was also, among that group, because she would share lots of information about her work and what she's been working on. And so we were very excited when she, joined the team and has kind of pushed the boundaries of her work a bit. I don't know if she's going to talk about this at all, and maybe I'll ask this in a question a little bit later at the end about how she's pushed the boundaries of her work as a journalist and actually is participating in this project, the Black Wall Street Journey project, with a kind of a different slant, a little bit of a visual element to her work. So maybe we'll just add that in a little later, Natalie?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it because it has definitely been a journey.
Okay, all right, so I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. This is our last Chop It Up. We've had some great conversations this summer. So we have Andrea Polk today and Stephanie Hart, and I'll let them introduce themselves and talk about their work. But I just want to encourage you to put comments in the chat, ask questions. This is a dialogue, and respond to what you're hearing. You don't have to wait. If something's resonating with you, drop a link in, drop a comment in. Let's have some fun this evening. So normally these talks are around food and drink, and I am just drinking water this evening. What do you two have, Andrea and Stephanie?
I have a herbal tea to help detox the body and inflammation. I think it's dandelion with another herb. And then I have my lemon water here.
And I am drinking dandelion infused water. Interesting.
Oh, wow.
A little bit of lemon extract. So.
Yes.
Wow.
Okay. And we didn't even plan that.
Frequency between the two of you.
Yeah.
Right. So Stephanie and I have done talks before. We can talk all night together, but I'm going to start with you, Andrea, because I don't know. I just learned about you through this process. But if you could first talk about your business, what you do, what your practice is.
Okay. So I am the owner of Solo Noir, shaving and grooming products, as well as at the top of the year, I started a new business with my daughter. It's called Zen Soul Apothecary. So Solo Noir is an all-natural grooming product for men, featuring products that's going to help empower them. I've named all the products after positive attributes. We have dapper, smooth, brave, refined, sleek, bold. I wanted to create a line that was not only natural, but also helped empower the men at that time. At the time when I created it, it was in 2012. There was really nothing in the space for them. That was prior to, the competition entering the market. And I purely created something because I knew what I wanted to see in a man's skin and how I wanted a man to present itself. So I created something specifically for that. And the business it's been an amazing journey. I'm not quite a $1 million business, but I had $1 million experiences with the business as it's taken me all over the world to promote the brand. And now it's now starting to become the financial success that I've been looking for. We're going to be launching in TJ Maxx in October for 3 of our items.
Wow.
And then we are one of a few businesses that was accepted into, it was a pitch competition, like Made in the USA for Walmart. And I'm one of the businesses that they chose. So that's a great thing. And then, so fast forward to now, everyone has known me for the woman that has done skincare products for men. And then I have this life-jarring skin issue and disease, this body problem that I never had before, that I've always been really healthy and vibrant. But last year everybody sat down, but I had to sit down not because I couldn't leave, but because I couldn't move. So I had to figure out how to heal myself from the inside out. And I evolved into a person that is more in tune with myself, is highly spiritual. I evolved into a shaman and a person that does Reiki and help other people unblock the emotional blockages that stop in their healing. And that sparked Zen Soul Apothecary. So my practice with Zen Soul, I do my healing services out in nature. I believe the perfect place to energetically dump and heal is, outside. So I do forest infused and lake infused experiences. And I walk my clients through a journey of tapping into their inner guru. I use crystal alignment to align the chakras. And then I also kind of help them tell them who their spirit animal is. Each session is just absolutely amazing, but it's developed me, and as well as I love seeing the people that I've worked with kind of break through that emotional, that block. Because we all figure we need to heal, but most people are stuck. And it's the most beautiful form of therapy, energy therapy. So that's why I'm here today. I feel like this is the most authentic part of me, where Solo Noir, as a woman owning a skincare line for men, I have to put on the face of a woman that, the exterior is more of an exterior product, but with Zen Soul Apothecary, I can be completely myself, and I love it. And the beautiful part of it is where Solo Noir is for the man of color, Zen Soul Apothecary is for women and mothers. And then we're also going to branch off into children conscious and healing kits as well, because my daughter is very connected as well, where she teaches people how to be mindful and be conscious and know how to align she knows more about the chakras than most people. But that's what Zen Soul Apothecary does. We actually have a crowdfunding campaign that we launched, and we have about 40 more days until the campaign will be over, and that's helping us create these healing kits for women and moms.
Can you drop all the links that you just talked about in the chat while I turn to Stephanie? So Stephanie and I last talked during Soul Food Month, which is June. My office at WBZ is 2 doors down. So, Stephanie has made birthday cakes, wedding cakes, has done everything for me. But I just learned her origin story. So if you can share about how you were trying to recreate your grandmother's recipes and what you did to get your caramel.
Yeah. Really kind of just really missing my grandmother and wanting, when I was a child, we were loved with cakes and desserts, and those things were special. They weren't really taken for granted. You didn't get to go to the store and buy all this stuff. So when you got something, you were excited. And I wanted a cake, a pineapple coconut cake that we would get for Christmas and for my birthday. So it was special coming up, and I missed the cake. I kind of tried finding it, and everyone had their version, but it wasn't the way my grandma made it. And so I started trying to teach myself how to bake, and it wasn't great always. Lots of failures. That's just the honest truth. But when I got it, it didn't just resonate with me, it resonated with other people. And I'll tell you, caramel is my number one seller. Pineapple coconut is not. It's my favorite. But caramel was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. So like thousands of failures, literally. I'm not joking, thousands of failures. And eventually I literally had a recipe from a lady in Arkansas. It tasted wonderful. She told me how to do it, but it never came out like hers. And so I finally went to this little town in Arkansas, a real little town in Arkansas, real country. And she showed me how to do it in her, she lived in I think it's called a trailer home. It was a really nice little trailer home. And we learned how to make it in her skillet. And it was so interesting because everything she told me was exactly correct, except for it was how she did it. And I say cooking is art and baking is science. So, you know, how you do things and the order you do things in baking can make two different things. You know, if you cream the eggs and the sugar, you're going to get something different than if you cream the butter and the sugar. And I know people don't think you don't cream eggs and sugar, but you do for a couple of recipes. They're just different. So, you know, I stretched myself and wanted that. I wanted my recipes to be all the way there, either from my memory or from some woman that represented my memories. You know, typically older women. I'll tell you another one, Natalie. When I first opened, I was at 720 East 75th Street. And I had an older woman come in and she said, baby, you know, I want to tell you, I really like your cakes. And your sweet potato pie is good, but your crust is not. And I was like, really? And I asked her, would she help me learn how to make a pie crust? And she did. She helped me learn. It turned out she had been a cook at, I don't even know if this bank is still in existence, Northern Trust Bank downtown on Clark Street. And so I went to the executive kitchen. She had pull, honey. And they let me come in and she showed me how to make pie crust. And I still make that pie crust, and my pie is old lady approved. My sweet potato pie is straight.
Okay, so what is the secret? If you can
tell you, the secret is you have to use butter in your pie crust. And you don't have to, you know, like people say you have to use lard. You don't. You have to use a shortening. And I use a vegetable shortening, a high quality one. If you're making it at home, you know, Crisco is all vegetable. You know, we think about that can and we think about bacon because our grandmothers put bacon drippings in the all vegetable shortening can. Mm-hmm. Crisco is not pork. You don't use any pork, but you need a shortening and you need some butter. And that was the secret. My crust just didn't have as much flavor as her crust did.
Andrea, what did you do before you launched your business? And Stephanie was in IT mm-hmm. and made this leap. What did you do prior?
So I went to Tennessee State and I did undergraduate and graduate school there. And I got a master's degree in supply chain management and business. So when I moved back here, I found myself working in lights, filters, and motors industry and selling. But the interesting part of it, I was very shy as I got into the career field. So having a sales background actually pushed me into breaking down that wall and being able to talk to any and everyone and being used to hearing no. So prior to me launching Solo Noir, I was working for a small business and selling lights and filters and motors. Hated the job, but it was comfortable and it paid the bills. And then I got a spark of okay, I want to do something different because this guy's not paying me what I'm worth. And I created a business plan in one of my classes, and it was purely based off of a skincare product for men. And a friend of mine was like, you should really pick that up. And I started doing research. I started kind of putting people in the right places. And while I was up for promotion at the job, I was secretly building, the brand. And I had a launch party in October of 2012 and ended up being like 100 or so people there. And a couple of my coworkers came and bought something for the boss. And so the next day he called me in the office. He was like, so, tell me, how do you like the job? And I was like, oh, this job is great. I want to be here forever. Like I could see myself like selling lights and motors for all my life, doing the spiel. And he was like, but secretly I knew that I wanted to leave at the end of the year. And this was October. I wanted to leave at the end of the year, but I was afraid to kind of take that leap because I didn't want to have to sacrifice my lifestyle. I was living in the West Loop. And that meant I would have to move home with my mom and make all these different changes. So he was like, Andrea, cut the crap. He's a Black guy, really cool. Came from Robbins. He was his own rise to fame, guy, and he was working for him. His company was $1 multi-million-dollar company. And he was like, cut the crap. And I was like, what are you talking about? he was like, I know what you're doing. He's like, I know what you're doing. And I actually respect it. And he was like, I think this is what you're supposed to do. He was like, before I started my business, someone gave me a push to fulfill my dreams. And I want to do the same thing for you. So he was like, I want to let you go. I'm gonna give you 2 weeks to train someone else, but I want to pay you through the end of the year. And I want you to file for unemployment. And I want you to use me as like a mentor. So I sat in his office and I was like, I'm afraid of getting out there. Like then the truth started to come out. Like, this is what I want to do, but I'm afraid. But thank you for the push. So on the last day there, I sat in my car. I was just crying. I was like, why did I do this? I can't do this. I didn't know any entrepreneurs that were successful. But I put it together because that was the same day I had to do my first pop-up shop in my first retail location. So since then, I never looked back. And that same owner that has fired me, he's like, I'll probably go down as the hold on, baby. Okay. I'll probably go down as the world's dumbest boss for firing the best entrepreneur. But he's always been in contact. And now that I have this crowdfunding campaign, he actually donated a big chunk of change for it because he's always been supportive for both of my businesses. Oh, sorry, this is my little one.
Mine busted through the door, but she turned right back around and left. So,
right. So that's how I got into it.
I want you to help me peel it off.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
I would love for both of you to talk about
Stepping on the court.
When you started your business, what you imagined for yourself and for the business, and then where you are today. Is it vastly different? Did you just learn something that completely changed your course? Whatever that may be.
I think for me, it is just now starting to be what I imagined. It's kind of crazy because I underestimated what it would take to get here. So in the beginning, I thought I would get a lot farther, a lot faster. And then I kind of lost track of what my original goals were for a while because I had to focus to survive. And that was a space that the type of survival, robbing Peter, killing Paul, reviving him, I never really envisioned that much struggle. My journey was tough on 75th Street, rewarding at the same time, but I underestimated what it would take for me to be able to get back to the things that I had in my previous lifestyle. It took a long time, a lot of years, like 10. So when I first went in, I thought, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to have books and I'm going to do this and I'm going to have a cake mix and I'm going to, oh, yay. And then it was the grind that came that, was just not what I expected. It was a lot tougher than I expected. And it took me a lot longer. So now I feel like right now in the last couple years, I'm reviving what I thought my business could be in the beginning, because in the middle, I kind of got lost. I was really trying to hang on.
Talk about what some of those hurdles were that you didn't see coming.
Well, like for instance, one of the first hurdles was when I came to 75th Street, I was at 720 East 75th Street. And I liked my little store. I put my heart and soul in that little store. I painted it pink and white, and I loved it. And I was renting, and somebody bought the building and literally told me, you got to go. And you have to go because I'm opening up a bakery. And to really be honest, 2 years in, I wasn't ready for that kind of just throw me out. And then, you know, I don't know how most people feel. 75th Street is extremely unique. And it wasn't so easy for me to find a place. So I literally ended up baking out of someone else's kitchen for a while, lagniappe, on the weekends to get.
Don't forget Harold's. You started off in Harold's.
Oh yeah, but Harold's was when those were good times. Harold's, that was before I even came to 75th Street. I tested out my cakes and all the Harold's. It's funny because people always say, why don't you put your cakes? And I'm like, oh, I did that. I started there. But no one knew who Brown Sugar was. And that's really what gave me, it was sort of like a really cool testing. So to put my products out without having overhead, using what people do now, I was using a ghost kitchen to produce my products, to send them out to other restaurants to sell. And Harold's was just a hit for me. And I picked up more and more Harold's. The city contacted me and said, you have to put your contact information on your label. It has to be, because at first I didn't even have any way for people to contact me. And that's when I knew I had to open up, because people were calling me, hey, you're out of red velvet cakes at 103rd Street. And I'm like, huh? Like, they wanted the cake. So I think that, and then 2009, How I Met You, that was a huge challenge for me, to be faced with no traffic and, you know, people come and say, hey.
Wait, not, it was not meeting me that was the challenge. It was
no.
The street
I met you.
The street was being torn up.
Yeah, so they tore up the streets and you came to cover that. That is how I met you, is what I was saying. And that was really devastating for me and very difficult, again, because I think I'm 4 or 5 years in now, starting to make a little progress, and people go, we're just going to make it impossible for people to access you. And the streets are going to be dirty and we're going to tear up the whole place. And that was difficult. And it also, it was difficult, but it helped me find my voice in the community. I think that's what that situation married me to 75th Street in a different kind of way, because I had to get to know my neighbors. I had to really get involved in a way, and we were all trying to survive together. And there's just nothing better to bond you than, you know, a group of people trying to make it. So yeah, those are some of them, but you know, that aren't as typical. You know, you're going to run out of money. You know, the day I opened up at my current location in 2007, my car was repossessed. Didn't have money for movers. We pushed our refrigerators and our stove from 720, the 4 blocks down to the new location. And I'll tell you something, Natalie, people were laughing at me, pointing at me. One man came up and said, are you trying to steal that refrigerator? So,
Wow.
fun times.
Beautiful. I guess my vision and goal has changed, but because I have changed, and it's made me a more conscious, I guess, business owner for Solo Noir, since that came prior. There were parts of Solo Noir that, because I went through a phase of like, okay, I'm a woman selling a man's product. You know, people were like, well, how do you know? I mean, you're a woman, how do you know? But I'm like, I know what I like to see, you know, and I'm a licensed esthetician. So it's coming from a space of education. But I went through a phase of doubting myself as a woman owning a men's skincare line. So I hid behind a lot of the branding, and the branding was very stale in the story. And then I went through a phase of, okay, pushing myself out there a little bit, but then I started to change. So it's like, I'm still trying to figure out a space on how to present myself as a woman of a male brand. But the beautiful part of it is because I found myself in the space of Zen Soul Apothecary and how that is going to develop into not just body care products for women, but easy, like so these kits are amazing. So each kit is going to be like, let me kind of get deep a little bit. So when I went through my process, I literally recorded everything that I went through, because I knew I was going through what I went through for a reason, where my skin was tar black. Every time I moved, my skin was slit. It was disastrous. So I literally wrote down every part of this journey, and I resonated really, really well with the butterfly, because there was a chrysalis, a caterpillar that perched itself on my chair, and me and my daughter got a chance to see the whole process from the chrysalis to the emergence to the flight. And I essentially created Zen Soul Apothecary to kind of exemplify that. So the first box is our self-love box, the cocoon box, where you're really working on your self-love. You're working on the heart and the solar plexus chakra, which we have affirmation cards that's going to help you align those things and make it super simple for those that aren't spiritual but want to know kind of how to tap into their own self. And then the second box is the emergence box, as the butterfly is coming out of the cocoon, and that's working on the lower chakras. And the following box is the rise box. It's the third eye and the throat, as you're rising through your consciousness and you are healing yourself. And the last box is the flourish box, where you are flying, essentially. So, but it's going to also encompass some body care stuff too. So once we launch that, I'm going to take that same concept and launch it for the men, the male. So you can't have the woman super awakened and in tune with herself, and the man, kind of stale. So not stale in a bad way, but I don't want to leave the man out. So I'm now going to expand the Solo Noir, not just from skincare products, but really hone into the lifestyle part of Solo Noir. And that original vision wasn't there. It was always a lifestyle brand, but I never really knew how to tap into the other side. But now that I've evolved and my journey has changed, then now I can introduce a whole new concept to the male client as well.
One of the challenges that we always hear about Black-owned businesses is access to capital. Can you talk about how you were able to launch financially? Were banks rejecting you? Did you have a good bank? Angel investors? How was it
for me
hard?
Well, yeah, for me, I've always been a person. I don't like to borrow I don't like to owe anybody. So fortunately, my mom, she put away money when I was younger. So I had a little bit of savings, and I used that. And then I got some credit cards to be able to bootstrap the business. But I found myself in debt, because if you have a product that you have to purchase in bulk before you sell it, and you don't know how fast it's going to sell, plus you got to do this and you got to do that. I found myself in like $30,000 debt the end of last year. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. I don't have that much inventory, but when last year happened, people decided to now start funding and helping Black businesses because of the Black Lives Matter movement and things like that. So I was able to benefit from that. And at the end of last year, I was able to pay off all of my debt from the grants and the assistance that I had. So was the money there in the beginning? Absolutely not. Was the money there at the end? Well, last year, yes. I do see it being easier. Like with Zen Soul Apothecary, I think it'd be a lot easier to raise money than I did with Solo Noir. But yeah, it's still there. It's still there.
I kind of see this as a amazing time. I talk to my friends that are in business, and I ask them to really take full advantage. I think sometimes as African Americans, just like Andrea said, we don't want to take more than we need right this second. We're very good at making $1 out of 55 cents. And I am on the path of preaching, look for everything now, be more like a squirrel, plan now, get all these opportunities that are here. Make sure that you take advantage of everything that you can, so that when the next wave comes or when the change happens, And hopefully, I hope it doesn't, but this is my 59th year on the planet. So, as fast as we are popular right now is as fast as there'll be something else. So I encourage entrepreneurs to go for everything you can right now, because I've been an entrepreneur since I was 22 years old, seen an opportunity where you can get funding the way that you can now, period.
When we were in I'll call it the green room before we went public, the two of you were talking about feeling like this is a time of rebirth for Black-owned businesses.
I absolutely feel that way. When I look, I've just never seen so many new businesses, and I've never seen so much opportunity for new businesses. I'll give you an example. When I bought and started, doing the candy line, I had people emailing me going, we heard you doing candy. Companies saying, could you please send this out for us? That's new. That's a new awareness. And we just got to be able to service people so that we can turn folks that may have other motivations to do good. And I love that. But we also need to take advantage so that we can make them customers for the long term. And it's just an opportunity. If you have an idea, if you have a business, if you want to expand your business, I don't know that it gets better than this right now.
Yeah,
I can't imagine it if it does.
I would definitely agree. It's interesting that it feels like a rebirthing because of the opportunities. Because I don't know how to explain it, but it just feels like a rebirthing because the opportunities have expanded. Where there were blockages before, things are definitely coming more easy. Larger companies are looking to support small businesses, and they are open with the amount of assistance. And because I can say that because within the last couple of conversations I've had with big box companies, they're like, look, we need y'all, we need you guys. And it's so beautiful because if you have built it, now they're coming. And I literally feel it. And I'm just happy that we have sustained, during this time, because if you haven't created a business that's already sustainable, it may be a little bit more difficult because those businesses that have been put in the sweat, it's time.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. We just launched our candy at Macy's, and it was, and when I tell you, how it is, and you've been out there, all of the hurdles, when you try to do something, all of you need this and you need this and fill out this form and fill out that form. And then you got to talk to this person. And it's like, hey, how are you? And yes, and yay. And we like the candy and we like your story, and people seem to be interested. And that is something that I think, a lot of people say, well, if this hadn't happened, but it has. And so, without all the philosophical, take advantage.
Yeah. You couldn't have told me that, we're on Macy's online, and you couldn't have told me that the story sells a lot more than the product does. And now when I'm having these conversations with buyers, they're interested in who I am, not just the product that I'm selling, because everybody has something, but it's about the entrepreneur behind the story. And it's never been like that before. It's more of okay, tell me about your brand. Well, I have this and I have that, but now it's okay, tell me about yourself. And you could sell them completely on yourself outside of the brand. When I pitched to a big box, I didn't send them the products because I had a lot of things going on, but I didn't even make a PowerPoint. It was just I just told them what I do, what I have. And from there, they were sold on the story. So I've learned that I become more successful being more authentically me than before. And not only is it the time for Black businesses, but it's also the time for people that are authentic, because people just want to connect. I mean, we had a year of not connecting. So people just want to connect and they want to offer, especially if they're conscious, they want to help a Black business because they've seen what history have done to us, and now they're having more of a heart and they're acting more in love versus in lack.
One of the challenges with Black-owned businesses that are in Black-owned communities is that how much can the clientele boost them financially? Because our communities tend, even though we have high income people, middle class, and we have the whole range, but even, taking about Black banks, for example, the way segregation works is you're limited in the type of assets that you can get because of the limitations of your clientele, which can also be applied to some Black-owned businesses. And I'm hearing you all talk, and I'm hearing Macy's twice, and I'm hearing TJ Maxx, and I'm hearing Walmart. And I'm wondering how much getting that mainstream attention and possible dollars is affecting your longevity.
I'm going to tell you, I think that I got an opportunity to see the first time I kind of got, if you will, I exported out of my community because, people thought, oh, when I went to Navy Pier, I was closing 75th for some reason. And I call it exporting out. Macy's is a new export, spot for me. And I think that what I have seen is that when you export out and you're exposing, I know for me that when people have brown sugar, I'm exposing my whole community. So I do feel like I've seen for sure, and Natalie, you're right next door to me. I think you would agree that we have a lot of different people in the last few years than ever before on 75th Street. And so I personally think that part of that is, people have to know you're there. And even in the light of all the negativity that's on the South Side, people do come to the South Side. They visit us on 75th Street, all kinds of people on any given day. And I'll tell you guys this really quick. I mean, several years ago, in the 2008 to 9, if there was a white person that came to the store, I'm like, oh my God, it's the tax man, the health man, or the electric. It was some man coming because they weren't coming to shop with us. Now it's just every day because families and people of every color come to that bakery every single day now. It's no day that we are just Southside anymore. And I know that comes from us being exposed outside of our community. And if you have good products, then they want to explore more and, not just explore me, but what else is here? And, that brings a whole new light. I mean, I love the way that we are sharing in between. So yeah, I definitely think that it's a good thing when we export out. And I think we bring that back to the community.
Mm-hmm. I like that term, export.
I like that. It's important. I think sometimes our culture, we look at it as a sellout. No, it's not. It's an expansion. I don't think anyone ever births a business just to keep it secluded in one sector. I mean, people love great products. They're gonna gravitate to you, and the opportunities are gonna come. So you shouldn't not export just because of who you are. I have a lot of white customers, but it's called Solo Noir. It's not specifically made for them, but they see the value in the product. So I
think to that, Andrea, what you said is important. And I think I personally feel like when you develop something like you developed this, and you did develop it with your particular customer in mind, but and so did I. I really developed a cake that just no way around it, that came from my mind of a Black woman. And every one of my products on the list, either Aunt Mary, Miss Ross, somebody like that made that product that I'm mimicking, right? And but when you do it with, you know, a precise, pristine care, and you put all yourself into it, who doesn't want that? And then that crosses line, just like for us, you know, I love a good Greek restaurant, you know, but I like the Greek restaurants where they got somebody's mama in the back loving on that food.
Right.
Yeah. I want to bring Rick into the conversation.
Very good. Yeah, great. Thank you. This has been really, oh wait, am I?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Yeah, this has been really exciting for me because, as I said early on, one of my challenges has been, one of the reasons for doing this project was to explore and find things that would be inspiring for people, you know, to think about the possibilities of Black businesses. As you know, Andrea referenced this earlier. She said that she was hesitant and nervous about starting a Black business because she didn't know any Black business owners, you know, and I think that's a very relevant thing for a lot of people. I mean, for me, myself here, you know, I've just started my studio as a business, a studio practice as a business. I've worked in a nonprofit all of my life because I've been interested in service. But as I've been reading and understanding how, you know, Black business has worked, you know, historically, it has been a service for people. I mean, you know, I remember one of the great Chicago business people reading about him, was it Dempster Travis? I think it's
MC Travis.
Travis, you know, who basically was saying he couldn't separate his work as a business person from the civil rights movement. You know, I mean, you know, it's an act of civil rights to be able to provide something for your, you know, a service or a product for your community that they can't get otherwise, you know, and so, you know, it just became really interesting for me. So I'm learning all this, and as I've said, though, I haven't had that model for me. You know, even on the community work that I've been doing, we're all working in the nonprofit sector and not so much the business sector. But now I'm beginning to, you know, peek into that and seeing the importance. But there is a huge gap that there's no, you know, I mean, we don't have that. You know, we don't have, you know, if I go block to block in my neighborhood in Houston, most of the people that live here, they're just there. They didn't have any, they don't know any people that own businesses and stuff. So it's really, you know, ones that are, as you all are, you know, I mean, you're obviously you're successful at your business, you're excited about it, you see possibilities and all that stuff. And that's inspiring to me, but it doesn't go to, so I'm just curious about, you know, how, I mean, am I just seeing this from an odd perspective, or is it really, I mean, do you feel that in your own lives though, that there is a challenge outside of your own success, but just in general? I know you say there are lots of new businesses that are coming up now, but I'm just thinking in general, if you kind of take away the last, you know, year or so, that folks have somehow have decided that they really need to support Black communities.
I know for
as far as, I'm sorry, go ahead, Andrea.
I was going to say, I think there were challenges, and there's still challenges, because for one, I came in when men weren't really into grooming. And then also having to compete with grooming products that were just on the shelf that were like $3. So I came in at a point where I not only have to educate, but men have to also be ready, you know, to even have a grooming regimen. But then also competing and teaching men, okay, your skin type is different than the white label products. So I've had my own challenges: woman, timing, men not being educated on grooming or not caring. But then when the beard game, everybody want a beard now, you know, then I'm in, you know, I'm popping. So, but I'm still a woman, you know, I don't have a beard, you know, but yeah. So, but then also having us support each other. I have a huge network. And until recently, people have now began to support. I'm like, I don't want any more likes or any more posts. Either share it or donate or buy something, you know? So That's my dilemma. See, having people, oh, I support you. You're doing great. Oh my gosh, you're just doing up. But have you spent $1? Most often not. But I don't equate all support as financial or monetary, but you got to communicate it some kind of way, you know?
I think for me, I have always sought out Black entrepreneurs my whole life. Like, I've been fascinated with Black entrepreneurs. I finally got a chance to meet Hermine Hartman. Like, I've been watching her since I was a teenager, right? They're just, like, I just always have looked for people. Reginald Lewis, read his book, and I've just been interested in Black entrepreneurs. I've been, lucky enough to like be bold enough to say, hey, Amy Hilliard, I know you're doing this, and I know you are way up here and I'm down here, but hey, look at me, and I want to talk to you. And people have always been nice. And also, like, in my own neighborhood, some of the best advice I ever got was from an older woman who passed away that owned a tavern on 75th Street. She knew everything. I would get sad and go talk to Miss Francis, and she would sit there and just like school me in such a way that, I think sometimes we look for people to be popular, but there have been Black people in business. There was a lady on further east on 75th Street, 80 years old. She had been there for 40 years sewing and doing pillows and stuff. And man, when you stop and talk to people like that have these stores, that have been in the community, maybe they didn't have the breakout success, but also from where they started to where they finished, it is different, right? We have a lot more opportunities than there were maybe, 40 years ago or 50 years ago. So I don't know, I seek out entrepreneurs. I think they're there. And are they, proportionate? Maybe not, but you only need 2 or 3 to like really get around you to motivate you. So I say you keep looking, and you're going to find somebody in the studio business that's just going to be able to make you feel really good.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because once I started to look at it, then as I said, I have personally been able to find loads of inspiring, people, inspiring parts of communities and all that stuff. But it's not, we don't popularize it. It's not so popular, it's
now,
not.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. It's not popular. And, I'm constantly telling people, we've got to tell the good news as well, right? Like, I fight for that. Sometimes I get my hand smacked for it. But, I feel like we should be able to have everything in our communities that you can get anywhere else, right? Mm-hmm. Are there challenges in our communities? Yes, there are, but I don't let the fact that, there's violence in Chicago make me not want to sit outside in front of my store, right? So I think that oftentimes the narrative around our communities is just, we're looked over, but the stuff is there. So I hope that things like this continue to happen so that folks know that there are businesses in our community and you can find things right here in your neighborhood.
Yeah, you just used a term that that I've been just thinking about all the time about Black Wall Street. The journey of it is, what's the narrative? What narrative are we getting out? And just research-wise and thinking about this journey of Black people from emancipation, right? And trying to figure out how do we establish economic base for ourselves, and all the different, the narrative is really incredible, and how after emancipation, the Freedmen's Bureau and people flipped up a little bit, and then it got pulled from under them because of the mismanagement of that, and the Black Bank movements, and then the movement for urban renewal and the and the FDR, so the New Deal and how all that got kind of pushed to the suburb, but we stayed in it, as Black people. We've been in this journey, but what I found that was really interesting, and this is kind of and that's why I'm happy to hear you all saying that this is the moment. This is a great moment for Black business, because in my head, in my little research I was doing, the narrative was very, there was a consciousness of the economic plight of Black people all the way up through the 60s and into the 70s. And then somehow into the 80s, the narrative seemed to have shifted from my research. People were not talking about, the need to figure out the Black question, and the urban, Black question, because they had the answer, and the answer was that Black people are drug dealers, welfare moms, and blah, blah, blah. And that became the narrative for the last, 40 years, right? Through the 80s, the 90s, Clinton, and it's, hyping up, and more people going to prison, and all this stuff going up. And it just seems though that there does seem to be a moment of possibility that we can shift the narrative back to some of the more positive things that you're talking about.
I think I'm an 80s baby, 81. So I am in that 40 years. I just made 40 in January. 40 is a beauty. Nobody ever told me when you turn 40, it's just like, oh, like the sky. every issue, like you just see it, you oversee it and you overstay it. So I came in that year where they didn't want us. I never saw entrepreneurs. I saw the destruction of the thing of the community. So mind you, I am different than everybody that's around me because I want to pursue something that no longer exists, in my foresight, in my existence. So that's why I'm super excited that I guess it took me 40 years to see it, but I definitely see the shift and the change and how things are moving.
Mm-hmm. And then for me, what's exciting is I think about this. I think about, when you stop and think that, it's only been 150 years that we're at this game, right? Like literally how many entrepreneurs now? So you start thinking about how many entrepreneurs are second generation entrepreneurs, third generation, fourth generation. We compete out here with businesses that have been around 5 generations, right? Mm-hmm. I just left visiting a third generation Chicago company. And it wasn't a Black company. I went to look at their manufacturing facility and I learned so much. And at the same time, I validated myself in so many ways because we beat ourselves up for where we are in the race. But the fact of the matter is we're in the race still. And that's so important. And, as we get going and as we try to now start talking about, you hear conversations, first time in my life, I'm around people that are saying, hey, we need to talk about generational businesses, generational wealth. And wait, when we pass the baton to our children, do you know how much easier that's going to be for them than starting from complete zero? And so that's why Tulsa happened, because they were trying to wipe it up. It's up to us to make sure that we're staying on top and staying loud. Tulsa won't happen again. Mm-hmm. It will not. Mm-hmm. It won't happen again. If we pay attention, it won't happen again. It won't.
Good.
We do have a question that's come in. Can you speak to the way business is a method for space making, either space for people to gather and interact, and people to be seen, perhaps in this particular context of this intergenerational point?
Deep question.
I don't know. Natalie, can you rephrase that for me?
Right, yeah. In layman's terms, whoever wrote that.
Good job.
Okay, Gabe, I think I might. Well, when I look at Brown Sugar, she is part of a space on 75th Street, and it's not a standalone. And so, not that there are other bakeries that are there competing, but it's part of, I would say 75th Street is space making, because you have so many restaurants and businesses and activity up and down the street. And so I think that is a magnet why Stephanie likes to be there, why And I'll give this as an example. So 75th Street, I kind of chuckle, is called downtown Chatham now.
Yes, girl. Aren't we coming along? I love that. You know, everybody laughs at me, but I say it again. Downtown Chatham. Yeah.
And downtown, when you hear about a downtown, that makes you think of vitality and a place that you want to be. And, I laugh when they started calling 53rd Street downtown Hyde Park. But, I get it. And, the pandemic, we've been cooped up, and 75th Street, I don't know if anyone saw, there were hundreds of people hanging out at night. Limbs is open to 2. The Francis's cocktail lounge is there, but also it was hot and people wanted somewhere to go. And then unfortunately there was a shooting on one of those nights. And so the neighbors are like, we have to get this under control. And also, I should say, on 75th Street, there's the Department of Planning and Development has put space making there. You can play oversized checkers. You can sit down. They have these sidewalk things that they put on to encourage positive loitering. And so when that shooting happened, Stephanie said, no, I don't want this to go away. Like, her reaction wasn't, we have to change the street so there's no more traffic, even though she's not open at 2 a.m. It was, this is our community. We can make this work. And so I think of that as space making.
Yeah, let me also add to that too, because this also kind of gets at this point about, businesses, it is about making money. Ultimately, you want to make money, but also from a community standpoint, it is about, creating community, on some level. Because I think right now, I don't know if you're thinking about this, about the value to your business having a physical location versus not having a physical location, right? You were saying that in as Natalie called the green room conversation about, corporate America, will people go back to those buildings? Because it's like, why go to the building and pay, have an expensive rent if you can get everybody to do it without? So, what would your business be like if you didn't occupy space, in the community? And is that a value for you?
For me, it's a big value. And literally, when I started the business, coming from the tech world, people were like, you really shouldn't do. And it was brick and mortar. You have a product, create the product, be online. And how I saw it was that the product that I wanted to create, it really, it's a product that I wanted people to celebrate with. And I think that, do I sell online now? Yes, now I sell online. Will I ever not want to have brick and mortar? Not in the foreseeable future. I think it's important that when you have a product that speaks to family and love and celebration, that there's a space that you can experience that. People want to talk about their family, and they want to talk about their celebrations. And then I think people want to experience, just eating together. I think that that's a little bit different experience, because I am in food. I think it's absolutely important for me to have brick and mortar. I'll also say that now I kind of understand that space question a little better. I went through this whole thing where I was like, occupy 75th Street. That was all I wanted. I wanted indoor, outdoor, because I also feel like if businesses and community get together and do things in their own community, then we have more control than if we just allow for, if you're programming the space and programming the time, then there's not as much opportunity for people to do other things that you may not want to be done. So to give you a quick example, I was so worried when they closed down our streets, because, when there's not the traffic that's coming to the stores and the businesses, then other people are just hanging out doing nothing. So yeah, I'm definitely into occupying the area. I think it makes it better for the community. Even if there's some little bits of inconveniences from businesses being in the community, like we might park in your parking space, ultimately, long term, you don't want to live someplace where you got to get in your car and go outside of your community for everything.
You know what, I wonder, maybe because so many Black neighborhoods are conditioned to doing that I feel like a lot of communities just want to be bedroom communities. They don't, I'm, for whatever reason, I'm somewhat surprised at some of the pushback on 75th, or, there's the new restaurant, is it called Ooh Wee on 83rd? Mm-hmm. And I know the neighbors, and I know that there's, I'm not saying the neighbors don't have legitimate concerns, but that restaurant could be an asset to the community.
I think so. I think it is an asset to the community. And I think the way that he did it, I love it. I mean, it's beautiful. It's inviting. It's new. I mean, in the way that he did it, it's not just something that, we have a lot of restaurants in our community that aren't run by us, that are just up there and they don't look good. They're not clean. It's not beautiful. And I think he did a fantastic job. I was so disappointed. Now, again, if you go to other communities, like Andrea said, she lived in the West Loop. Have you ever been to the West Loop on a Friday night? Yeah, there are people that live there and they still have to figure out ways. And so I hope that they figure out ways, and the community folks just don't shut down or try to shut down. It's going to be hard on 75th Street because we're here to stay.
It's too many of y'all.
We coming. And I care about my neighbors. I do. I care about my neighbors. But I also think that we've got to be, and I like that term, we can't just be bedroom communities, because when you're bedroom communities and there's no business, pretty soon people will be creeping in your bedroom. And, you got to have a balance.
Yeah.
I'm going to enter the space category in October, where I, along with two other businesses, are going to be occupying the L1 space under the Green Line on 55th.
Yeah.
And I am hoping that we can create a community space, because there's other businesses on that row as well. So yeah, it's going to be a new territory for me. I've never had to be in one spot. It always was my goal to have a location, but I'm hoping that we could have a welcoming experience, as you have explained, where you are in Chatham.
Good. Well, I'm gonna shift just a little bit to talk about Natalie's project, because I've been in a debate with Natalie actually on this project along the way. Not really debate, we just, but so Natalie has this great project where she posed curated quotes about the issues around Black economy, and they were scheduled to go on bus shelters throughout Chicago. We ran into some little challenges with that. I don't know if Natalie has something to say about that, but I will say that when we were looking for the quotes, and I was asking Natalie if I was like, yeah, but can we get something more inspiring about inspiring quotes? And Natalie just kind of said, I'm really pissed about how things are going and how we're how things are kind of slanted against the African American community, and so she wanted to compile the quotes in that way, and they are very provocative and thought-provoking quotes, and but I have this thing though, because I'm always saying I want something that's inspiring, and Natalie's like, yeah, but people need to know the truth, of what's going on. So Natalie, can you talk about your posters a little bit, and then we'll get some. Let's see if we can get Andrea and Stephanie to kind of like, see who we can win over.
It's not an either or, it's a both and. The quotes that I chose some were just straight stats about the racial wealth gap, how much wealth Black Americans have had since emancipation and that it's the same today. Median income, things like that. And then I had some pithier quotes like Black capitalism won't save Black America. But also like, how would you invest your reparations money? So some questions. The one more positive one, to use that term, is what would a Chicago utopia look, feel, and smell like? And those are on bus shelters across the city. And, I know that there's buying power. I know that there's positivity. I grew up here and, in the shadows of Black hair care companies and Johnson, and also, Black owned grocery stores. When I went to college in a Black neighborhood, HBCU, I was like, there are no Black owned businesses around here. And even though we didn't have everything that we needed, there was still Black dry cleaners that you could see. So, I had that frame of reference. The Luster House was not far from where I grew up. So there was role modeling. And also Oprah was here. But and not just because we're in this moment, I think it's because of the type of reporting that I do, that I wanted to be rooted in some statistics and let people, and not just on the South Side, but all over the city, to know that segregation costs this entire region money. So that's where I was going. So Rick, the utopia question, that's the positive one that's on the bus stops.
Well, so what's the question that's on the bus stops now? Can you tell them what? Not the.
No, that's the one that I said. What does a Chicago utopia look, feel, and smell like?
Yeah, good. So anyway, but we're interested in kind of getting info, because we have this little thing we're calling a ticker that we're trying to put online. Things about the Black economy that people should know. And a lot of those things are things that we're hoping that we can start to get some things that offer positive and optimistic views. So I have a question that I'd like to ask each of you from these questions that are also in the exhibition at the Smart Museum. It's what gives you hope about the economic state of Black people in America? Is there anything is it something that gives you hope and think that we're going to make it, it's going to be good, that you can tell the younger generations, it's good?
I'll just say quickly that I think that we are resilient and we make a way out of no way.
Mm-hmm.
For sure, that and I think that that's why, it's funny because at the beginning of the pandemic I was so concerned, but because we make a way out of no way, we have several of us that have made it and against all odds. So it was sort of like we already know how to do this, right? But I think another thing that is real exciting for Black people in business is just this whole the way that marketing and being able to reach your customer and an audience has become more democratic. That's really huge. That in fact, you may not even have to know who I am and I can sell to you. Mm-hmm. And I just think that's amazingly hopeful.
I would say that they tried to bury us, but they forgot that we were seeds, so no matter what situation we're put in, we will always rise with a little bit of sun and a little bit of water. So now I feel like that we're getting watered. So we're diligent. We don't give up. So no matter what constraints we are creative, and we'll always rise in that space. So the future is you can't really. It's just bright. The future is bright because we're always gonna succeed. We're always gonna succeed.
Thank you. That's fantastic. It's good. It's good. It's good to hear that, because I just think so often, if we listen to, most of the reports that we get, we always talk about how, the Black community is like, the lowest of this, and we're always at the bottom of everything when we're compared, in general. But what I've started to train myself to do, though, is not trying to look at how well we're doing in relative to like Wall Street, but let's see how well we're doing relative to last year or the year before in my own neighborhood, and that way you start to find much more positive things, because we are working and we are doing something, we are sustaining ourselves. And so anyway, thank you for taking the time to answer that question for me.
And Rick, when I think about those stats, I don't look at it as a deficit against us. Like, to me, it's more of an indictment on the system. And one of the quotes said, people who sell loose squares and, are a vital part of our economy too, that there's an underground that's there, and recognizing that you don't have to be a CEO. And that, everybody is that's that maker way out of no way. And why are they part of that underground economy? I was going to wrap up, but Lauren has a question that I think, Andrea, maybe you can take quickly. How can encouraging herbalism and agriculture in youth help people learn to heal themselves and become more self-sustainable?
How can encourage? So what I know is we all have a history ancestrally of being in planting the seed, seeding the soil, and also healing ourselves. But the remembrance have been forgotten because our parents have lost that connection to the planting the seed and tending to the soil. So it takes the education, it takes surrounding the child, or, there's so many like community gardens. Once you connect them with the soil, that remembrance will be sparked. And then you can start planting those seeds into them by the things that you feed them, by the things that they watch. I think that would be the best way to explain it. Like, you have to reconnect them to what is naturally us. If you want them to be into herbalism and agriculture, take them to a garden, volunteer their time, or build your own garden. Whether you live in an apartment or you have an area outside, you have to teach them to remember that ancestral DNA by actually putting them in front of it. You start there.
It's fantastic. Good.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Stephanie. And Rick, this is the end of the Chop It Up journey for our Black Wall Street journey, but people can check it out at the Smart Museum, the School of the Art Institute, as well as right next to Boxville. And there's a QR code. And so all these questions that we're being provocative about, you can ask and go to the Black Wall Street Journey website. So thank you and have a good night.
Thank you.
Very nice to meet you.
You guys, big
Have a
break.
good night.